I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Burkina Faso to introduce an address by the head of state.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, Secretary General of the United Nations, ladies and gentlemen, heads of delegations, it is my great honor and privilege to introduce His Excellency Mr. Roch Marc Kaboré, President of FASO, for his statement during the general debate of the 76th session of the General Assembly of the United Nations. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, Secretary General of the United Nations, ladies and gentlemen, heads of delegation, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President Abdullah Shahid, my country, Burkina Faso, welcomes your outstanding election to the presidency of the 76th session of the UN General Assembly. I can assure you of our full support so that your term in office be a success. This will help to achieve, and I quote, the presidency of hope to which you have been elected. To your predecessor, His Excellency Mr. Volkan Bozkır, I would like to convey our sincere congratulations on the remarkable way with which he presided the work of our shared organization during his term. Mr. Secretary General, your outstanding re-election on the 18th of June for a second term in office of 5 years at the head of our organization gives you the opportunity to ensure your 2021 priorities be implemented and to have a calmer outlook for the next few years. I would like to convey my sincere congratulations and my great encouragement to you for even more success during your second term. You rightly underscored in your acceptance speech of the 18th of June that the last 18 months were unique in the history of the United Nations, and that our greatest challenge is to transform the crisis of these past few months into an opportunity. You presented a strategic vision for your second term. It confirms your commitment and determination to strive to bolster both multilateralism and the UN in solving the numerous problems facing our world, particularly during this difficult period of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, heads of delegations, the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly which opened on the 14th of September, has as its theme, and I quote, building resilience through hope to recover from COVID-19, rebuild sustainably, respond to the needs of the planet, respect the rights of people, and revitalize the United Nations, end of quote. This theme corresponds to the 5 priorities of the President of the General Assembly. It challenges us all in that the priorities focused on global challenges that no country can tackle alone. More than ever, we need stronger and more committed multilateralism. Indeed, apart from the challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic, many countries in the world are currently facing other scourges such as terrorism, climate change, and poverty. Everything points to the fact that if this trend continues, the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda, unfortunately, will not be attained. On coronavirus in particular, we need to rally more and to further bolster international solidarity to combat this pandemic. It has devastated millions of families and has worsened the already worrying economic situation in many countries. At the national level, Burkina Faso has adopted a response plan to organise the public health response and has drawn up social measures and an economic recovery plan. Thanks to COVAX and thanks to our friendly governments and countries, we've received vaccines and our vaccination programme is underway. I would like to thank our multilateral bilateral and private partners who've assisted Burkina Faso in its efforts to rally against the pandemic, I would launch an urgent appeal for greater international solidarity so that we can truly be protected from the devastating impact of this pandemic. Furthermore, combating COVID-19 must not make us forget that we need to combat HIV/AIDS, which is also considered a pandemic. I welcome the fact that a high-level meeting on HIV/AIDS was held on the 8th of June 2021. I am delighted that a political declaration was adopted, which is a call to action to stamp out AIDS by 2030. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, terrorism is also an enormous challenge that we must confront, given the numerous victims it causes throughout the world. In Africa and in the Sahel region in particular, development efforts have been destroyed over recent years by ongoing and recurrent terrorist attacks. In Burkina Faso, the security situation continues to deteriorate, in particular in the three-border area, that of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, but also in other regions of the country. In order to ensure that security returns to all the regions under threat, the government has adopted tools to pilot a national security policy. Furthermore, the government continues to build the capacity of its defence and security forces to ensure proper operational effectiveness. No effort will be spared to guarantee security in all the regions threatened in the country. I would like to reassure the international community that military operations, just like those carried out already, will be conducted in strict compliance with human rights and in line with the international commitments Burkina Faso has undertaken in this area. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, in the area of counterterrorism, the efforts of affected countries alone can only have a significant and sustainable impact if they are supported by the international community. Indeed, stability, security and peace in the Sahel are not just a matter for the G5 Sahel, Burkina Faso, Mali, Mauritania, Niger and Chad. This is particularly true because, and I might have to remind you that the situation results from the collapse of Libya in 2011, which saw the trafficking of arms in the region skyrocket in the Sahel region. This is a good opportunity for me to remind you that this is a matter of international peace and security. Therefore, there's an urgent need for the international community, and in particular the Security Council, to support the G5 Sahel countries in their counterterrorism efforts. Once again, the best way of doing so is to place the mandate of the G5 Sahel Joint Force under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. I commend the coordination and cooperation efforts of the member states of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, as we jointly combat terrorism. The 59th session of the Conference of Heads of State appointed Mr. Mahamadou Issoufou, former President of the Republic of Niger, and Mr. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, as champions to mobilize resources for the 2020-2024 plans of action to eradicate terrorism in the region. This is a good sign and it constitutes a major part of ECOWAS's commitment here. I would also like to recognise and commend the multiform assistance provided by all bilateral and multilateral partners, the European Union, the United Nations and many others in this fight. I would like to reiterate our gratitude to the Secretary General of the United Nations for his personal commitment to the Sahel. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, following on from the 2016-2020 period, Burkina Faso is now implementing a new development framework, the National Economic and Social Development Plan, the PNDES 2021-2025, and it focuses on the following. Firstly, building peace, security and social cohesion and promoting national reconciliation. Secondly, furthering institutional reform and modernizing the civil service. Thirdly, building on the emerging trend to transform production within the national economy. Fourthly, building on human development and cohesion. The implementation of the PNDES2, the National Development Plan, will require 19,000 billion CFA francs, so that's about 34 billion US dollars, which is 63% of which will be provided by the national budget. I'd like to take this opportunity of speaking from this rostrum to thank all our technical, financial, bilateral, multilateral and private partners who've accompanied us in implementing the PNDES1 and they've assisted us in drafting our national framework. I'd like to express to them in advance the gratitude of the Burkina Faso people for the support that they will not fail to lend us in mobilising necessary resources to implement our National Economic and Social Development Plan 2021-2025. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, as regards climate change, the increasing frequency of extreme weather events with the terrible impact that they have challenges us to grasp the urgent need for robust and concerted action. This climate emergency was confirmed by the recent report of the International Panel on Climate Change. The report underscores the accelerated pace of climate change and unequivocally places blame on human action. In Burkina Faso, we believe that 34% of our land has been degraded, not just because of the actions of mankind, but also because of drought and endemic floods. Competition to access scarce natural resources harms peaceful coexistence and leads to greater instability. Burkina Faso ratified the Paris Agreement on climate. It was one of the first countries to submit our nationally determined contributions in 2015 during the adoption of this agreement. The nationally determined contributions, the NDCs of Burkina Faso, are based on mitigation and adaptation measures. The NDCs covered areas such as agriculture, water, animal husbandry, housing, urban planning, biomass and energy, forest and land use. Given that we have no planet B, all countries, big or small, developed or developing, need to contribute to save our planet, to make our world a better place where both current and future generations can live. 5 years after the adoption of the Paris Agreement, COP26, planned for November in Glasgow in Scotland, will be an important time to evaluate our joint commitments and our global attempts to combat the climate crisis. The pandemic delayed the summit, but this gives us an unexpected opportunity to rethink our post-pandemic economic recovery. In order to ensure our fight against climate change is successful, adaptation is imperative. Thus, it's crucial that we rethink our lifestyles, our means of production, and our consumption. To this end, Burkina Faso welcomes the initiative to organise a food systems summit. This is an opportunity for us to evaluate our current systems and to think about how to implement the SDG to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture." End of quote. We cherish the hope that this summit will enjoy broad participation of member states and will lead to fruitful conclusions. Despite its security and public health situation, Burkina Faso has never failed to maintain its commitment to serve peace through the United Nations theatres of operations. I'd like to take this opportunity to say that I'm delighted with the consensus that we've seen this year regarding the smooth running of the 11 peacekeeping operations. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, the situation in Libya warrants particular attention from the international community. This is because a solution to the Libyan conflict would indubitably contribute to stability and security in the Sahel region. I would like to take this opportunity to express the fact that the Burkina Faso people stand in solidarity with our brethren Libyan people whose suffering has gone on too long. Regarding Western Sahara, Burkina Faso would like to reaffirm its support for the political process underway, conducted under the auspices of the UN Secretary General. This seeks to attain a political, realistic, pragmatic, lasting and compromise-based solution to this regional dispute. This was recommended by the 17 Security Council resolutions since 2007. Given the notable progress made during the 2 roundtables in Geneva that brought together Algeria, Morocco, Mauritania and Polisario, Burkina Faso would encourage the participants to maintain their commitment in the process in a spirit of realism and compromise. In the Middle East, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains a real challenge for the international community. This was the message by the Special Coordinator for the Peace Process in the Middle East to the Security Council in May this year after the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. He called for the establishment of a political outlook that would enable the parties to resume constructive negotiations, because the absence of these political prospects is killing hope. He is therefore urging for a resumption of negotiations. Regarding the economic, trade and financial blockade imposed by the US on Cuba for the past 60 years, the General Assembly broadly rejected this on the 23rd of June. This resolution, which adds to the 29 other resolutions adopted since 1992, underscores the need to bring an end to this embargo. The consequences of the socio-economic and public health consequences of which are already disastrous, have been worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. Burkina Faso commends the resilience of the Cuban people. We strongly call for the lifting of the embargo for the well-being of the Cuban people. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, on the 16th of June, the General Assembly adopted by consensus the oral decision of the President on continuing at the next session and in informal plenary the intergovernmental negotiations on Security Council reform. It drew from meetings during the session and the document called Elements Paper on Convergence and Divergence, drafted by the co-chairs. It drew from the positions and proposals of member states as well, contained in the 2015 framework document. A historic consensus has emerged around a basic document, and this is an important step in the right direction. Burkina Faso welcomes the fact that most delegations have joined with the Common African Position. We would like to take this opportunity to reiterate our support for this position as reflected in the Esselwini Consensus and the CERT Declaration. And we'd like to support the indivisible nature of the 2 parts of the African position. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the world is facing difficult challenges. Clearly, to tackle them, we need an even stronger United Nations. We need bolstered multilateralism and an international community that is more committed than ever. So let us all work to strive for unity of action. Let us strive for a world of peace, of justice, a world without hunger and without armed conflict, a world rid of terrorism and rid of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is possible if we all commit to it. Thank you very much.
On behalf of General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of FASO and the President of the Council of Ministers of Burkina Faso for the statement just made. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Laurentino Cortizo Cohen, President of the Republic of Panama.